Last night, President Frazier bestowed a presidential citation on myself and Dr. Dempsey and a few others. It's one of those gap awards that the president has the liberty of awarding if you feel like you've been instrumental, but you don't necessarily fit into a category, or she just finds value in your work. So I've known President Frazier for 20 plus years, and our paths have always overlapped, either in our work in AMCD or our research areas. We share a mentor, so we've always been in the same circles. So she spoke directly to my research and my influence in HBCUs and training counselors and counselor educators of color. Sure, yeah. So I'm the program coordinator at North Carolina A&T, and I teach qualitative research courses. So a lot of my work centers around those methodologies. I recently have done more work in Black male counselor educator pedagogy and excellence. So I write about double consciousness, and I also do some work on pathways. Uh, we submitted an article for Pathways to Full Professorship, and then I dabble in music therapy. I've written some pieces on hip hop and the influence of rap music in counselor education. And my grantsmanship has been in NIDLR, the National Institutes for Independent Living and Related Research. So I've written on disabilities and employabilities of Afro and Latino, Latinx ex-offenders. So that's been my funded work, but my joy comes in writing about historically marginalized groups. So Black men and the training of counselor educators of color tends to be what I come back to. Greatly. So I've served on a number of boards, and I always kind of take the position, what's in the best interest of counselors of color or counselor educators of color. So I feel somewhat of an obligation to keep that mindset in the forefront of my comments and my positions. I specifically come to boards saying who represents HBCUs in the building, who's going to speak on their behalf, who's going to ask questions from their perspective. So I bring that influence into the room too. So still directly, I have the privilege of living in the same city where the headquarters is. So I want to have those two entities intersecting as much as possible. So I want to speak as a board member or someone who's familiar with the board when I'm in my classroom, and I want to have members present at A&T. I've served the state of North Carolina as a licensure board member, and I made it pretty clear that these two units have very little to do with one another, and I thought that was somewhat embarrassing. So I just wanted people to know who was in the room and how close they were, and I wanted them to take advantage of it, and I still want them to take advantage of it. So I will ask board members to make a visit to A&T, even in the virtual space, and I will try to speak on what are the current events within NBCC or within law or compact or policy or any of the hot topics that I just think make our education cutting edge. I definitely, when we came out with our need statement, our creed, I helped write the creed in reaction to some of the mass shootings and police brutality and profiling. I was really excited that NBCC was the type of company that wanted to have a position and be public about it. So that was one of my favorite moments as a board member. The compat work is still something that I'm happy about. I really enjoy my work with the fellows, even though that's not my board. Uh, I think that's our lifeline, and I think the simultaneous renewal that we can create with fellows is critical. I was a board member. I was an advisory board member on the fellows board many years ago, and some of my students are current fellows, and some are fellow alum. So I definitely see the benefit in the product, and I think that's the place where we can infuse new practices and new areas of development. Because if we're going to give people the lexicon of being the future, then I think that they should be equipped. I think students in particular need to take advantage, full advantage of all of the tools and opportunities that NBCC presents. Um, my students in particular are in need of resources. And again, to have a reservoir that's so close to you in proximity and not take advantage of it is a travesty. So I want them to be knee deep in the NBCC business. I want them to be ombudsmen or ombudspersons, if you will, for NBCC. And I want the relationship to flow the other way too. I want NBCC to be aware of the work that's going on at A&T. I really think the two need each other, whether they want to admit it or not. So I have very intentional reasons for wanting to have these places collide. I have four things that I want to do. One, and I've said this publicly too, so I'll say it now. I want NBCC to delve into leadership, entrepreneurship, um, and some type of grantsmanship work. Those are the gray areas that I think counselors and counselor educators still are struggling to advance. I think NBCC could stand some type of JEDI initiatives, the Justice, Equity, Diversity, and Inclusion. You may have heard Sean talk about that in his remarks yesterday. So that's one. Those are three of the major areas. Another area is I want NBCC to get into the big data business. We bring in thousands of professionals to be certified, but we don't study them. We don't study competency. We don't study self-efficacy. We don't study attitudes toward employability. We just are sitting on a data set that we can just actively can create, and we can just study ourselves. So how do counselors in the West feel about blah, 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 compared to the East? And we would have the data there. So yeah, I hope by saying this, we can put this into action. We could create our own grants initiatives. We could be our own NIH, if you will, our own NSF, and it's just sitting there. So those are my areas that I want to grow into, or I want to help the organization grow into. It's really just to let my students know that they don't have to worry about their education. That's at least someone is giving them a nod of approval. Not that they need it, but I think that's always in the back of their mind. How do we measure up? How do we compare to other schools in the country, other schools in the region, other schools in the nation? And I can say, look, someone is saying that what we're doing here is working. Someone is saying that what's going on in this space is equitable and valuable. So I really want the people that I work with to know that, hey, we're still doing our job. The award has my name on it, but there are a lot of people that contribute to anything that I do. And I just say, let's just continue to push forward.